Hey, what's going on? I'm gonna break down the best and fastest clearing rogue build I played so far in Diablo 4, and you don't even have to use uniques. Let's jump into it. Starting off on the helmet, I'm running the aspect of the protector. Damaging an elite gets you a barrier. It's not a key aspect, it just gives me a little bit more survivability in the higher nightmare dungeons. A couple options you can replace it with is going to be Ravager's mobility aspect. Gives your Shadow Step an extra charge. Shadow Step's a key tool in this build because it gives you a CC break. Having an extra CC break is always beneficial. If you're going to run this aspect, put it on your boots and take the aspect from your boots and put it on your helmet. Another option to replace it with is protecting defensive aspect, the magic bubble. If you like the magic bubble, you can put that on your helmet instead. It's just your preference, whatever you like more. As for the traits or enchantments, I'm running total armor, basic skill attack speed, shadow imbuement, poison imbuement. Idealistically, I'd rather have health instead of one of the imbuement buffs. I just didn't get fortunate enough to roll it on my helmet. As for my chest piece, I'm running the aspect of might. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction for 6 seconds. You're always trying to weave in autos before each cast of Barrage, so you're always getting 20% damage reduction. That's a pretty important aspect in this build. As for the traits or enchantments, I'm running damage reduction, marksman skill damage, max life, and total armor. The most important of these is going to be damage reduction and max life. Total armor is always beneficial. Marksman skill, you can reroll to whatever you want. The aspect of the gloves, the aspect on the gloves is going to be the aspect of expectant. Attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill by 10% up to 30%. You're always trying to weave in 3 autos before each cast of Barrage. It works in tandem with combo points, gives you the most bang for your buck when it comes to damage. As for the traits or enchantments, I'm running Lucky Hit Chance. I'd rather have Crit Chance instead. Attack speed buffs your core skill damage, your core skill speed and your basic skill speed. And the next, I'm running critical strike damage with imbued skills. Most of your damage is coming from crit damage, so having this on your gloves is pretty important. And I'm running 4 ranks of Barrage. The aspect on my pants is going to be Disobedience. You gain 0.5 armor for 4 seconds when dealing any form of damage, stacking up to 50%. Just gives you more survivability in this build. It's pretty important. As for the traits or enchantments, I'm running total armor, imbuement skill cooldown reduction, max life, and damage reduction. The most important of these is going to be damage reduction and max life. Total armor is always beneficial. Imbuement skill cooldown reduction, you can have whatever you want on there. The aspect on my boots is going to be Mangler's aspect. This is the newest improvement to this build. Dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy has a 45% chance to daze them for 2 seconds. Just gives you a little bit more CC when fighting elites. Sometimes you can perma CC an elite so they can't attack you. Just sometimes helps. If you want to replace this, feel free to do so. It's not a key aspect. I find it to be helpful. As for the traits or enchantments, I'm running movement speed, dodge chance, energy cost reduction, and dexterity. The most important of these two is movement speed and dexterity. I roll dexterity because dexterity is the direct increase to skill damage. And as far as my crossbows aspect, it's going to be Edge Master. Skills deal 40% increased damage based on your available primary resource. Since you're always weaving in 3 autos, you're always giving your primary resource time to recharge, so you're usually always getting a 40% increased damage buff. That's why I'm running that on my crossbow. I run a crossbow instead of a bow is because a crossbow gives vulnerable damage instead of distant damage, and sometimes you're close to your enemies, so you don't always get that distant damage. The traits or enchantments I'm running is going to be core skill damage, vulnerable damage, dexterity, and critical strike damage with imbued skills. I'd say these are pretty important rolls. If you can get this on a crossbow, that'd be good. As for my necklace, I'm running the aspect of Umbrus. Critical strikes with marksman skills have up to an 87% chance to grant a free Dark Shroud. I originally did not run this on my build. However, moving up in the Nightmare dungeons, I needed more survivability, so having the Dark Shrouds just gave me that. 3 ranks of all imbuement skills, 3 ranks of weapon mastery passive, movement speed and cooldown reduction. If you can roll movement speed and weapon mastery passive, I'd say those 2 are the most important. The other 2 are optional. Moving on to my ring, I'm running the aspect of Ravenous. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants 70% increased energy reduction. This is not a key aspect. You can roll this to whatever you want or change it or replace it to something else. I just run it to try to keep my energy bar full so I can always do an extra 40% damage. Usually everything you're killing is going to be vulnerable thanks to your Paragon board. As for my traits on my ring, I'm running damage to close. Preferably, I'd reroll that. Physical damage, I'd reroll that too. Critical strike chance and max life. Moving on to my other ring, I'm running in the aspect of branching volleys. Since you're running Barrage, this is just beneficial, allows your barrage to do a little bit more damage. As for the traits or enchantments, vulnerable damage, physical damage, crit strike chance, and critical strike damage. This is a pretty good traits. However, I'd reroll physical damage off to something else, maybe life, because when you're using imbued skills, you're not really doing physical damage, you're doing magic damage, or poison, cold, or shadow, so not physical. However, it just helps. Moving on to my swords, I'm running the aspect of corruption. Your imbuement skills have a 38% increased potency against vulnerable damage. Thanks to your Paragon board, usually always making everything vulnerable around you. So it just gives you 40% increased potency against those enemies. As for the traits, I'm running core skill damage, critical strike damage with imbued skills. That's where most of your damage comes from. Vulnerable damage and dexterity. I try to roll dexterity on everything I can because it's a direct increase to your skill damage. Then other sword, I'm running the aspect of accelerating. Critical strike with core skills increase your attack speed by 25%. It allows you to weave in your autos faster. It allows your barrage to cast and attack faster. So having that is pretty. I wouldn't say it's a key trait. It's just beneficial. So the traits on the sword: critical strike damage, dexterity, vulnerable damage, and damage to close. Idealistically, I'd roll the damage to close enemies off to something else, maybe crit damage with imbued skills, because you're not always close, you're not always distant. So having something else there would be better. However, if you do want to run uniques in this build, you can run Condemnation instead of the aspect of accelerating. I did some testing. I found that both the builds run pretty close to the same damage. I just like this one better because it gives me another aspect, allows me to attack faster. The reason these two are comparable is because on this one, you lose your crit damage. You lose 2 crit damage, and you lose the dexterity roll. It's just whatever you prefer. This is not necessary. You do the same damage with both builds, so that's just up to you, whatever you prefer. Another option is the Penitent Greaves. It leaves you the Snail Trail, the Cold Frost Trail. It allows you to do 10% increased damage to chilled enemies, so anything you walk over is going to get an extra 10% damage. One of your imbuements is going to be cold imbuement, so it gives your frost damage on that, or your damage to this an extra 10%. Sometimes the damage can be higher, sometimes not. You're also losing 60 dexterity, which is a 6% direct skill damage increase. So it's just up to you. It's just preference. Moving on to our skill tree, I'm running Puncture, built all the way out to Fundamental Puncture. The reason I'm running it all the way out to Fundamental Puncture is because it breaks it into 3 blades, and hitting an enemy with 2 blades makes them vulnerable for 2 seconds. It's just another source of vulnerability. Next, I'm running ranks in the Barrage. 5 ranks all the way built out to Advanced Barrage. I have 3 ranks in the Sturdy, 3 ranks in the Siphoning Strike. Siphoning Strike is a pretty important part of this. It gives you lifesteal when you're around a bunch of enemies, prevents you from popping all your pots so fast. This just gives you damage reduction from close enemy. Any damage reduction you can get on Rogue, I would take it. Next, I have Shadow Step, built all the way out to Methodical Shadow Step. You don't have to do this. I just like it because it allows me to CC a target I'm jumping to. Sometimes you have to jump to an elite, burst it down with your cold imbuement. So having this on your build is just beneficial. Next, I'm running Weapon Mastery. I have 3 ranks in the Weapon Mastery and another 3 from my necklace. Crossbows get 30% critical strike damage. Most of your damage is coming from critical strike, so the more you can stack, the better your build's going to do. The next, I'm running Dark Shroud. Like I said earlier, Dark Shroud, I used to not run Dark Shroud, but the higher the nightmares, the more damage reduction you need. And usually always at 5, so usually always getting around 50% DR. I have it built out to subverting Dark Shroud, more movement speed. I like to move faster. You don't have to build it all the way out. If you need an extra 2 points, you can take these off and put them somewhere else. Next, I have Exploit. I'd say these 2 are pretty important in this build, so definitely build into these 2. 3 ranks in the Exploit, 3 ranks into Malice. Just increases your vulnerable damage, always important. I have 2 ranks into Shadow Imbuement, built all the way out to Mixed Shadow Imbuement. I have 2 ranks into Poison Imbuement, built all the way out into Blended Poison Imbuement. I have 3 ranks into Deadly Venom. It just allows your Poison Imbuement to do more dot damage. More dot damage allows you to kite better. Enemy die when you kite them. Precision Imbuement allows your imbued skills to have higher critical strike chance. I'd say that's a pretty important one. I have 3 ranks in the Cold Imbuement, built all the way out to Mixed Cold Imbuement. Mixed Cold Imbuement, you do more damage to crowd controlled enemies. Frigid Finesse, you deal 15% increased damage to chilled enemies. This allows your cold imbuement to do a lot more damage. It's usually what you want to use on the elites or the tankier enemies. I don't have a ultimate, and as for my key passes, I'm running Precision. It just allows you to do a little bit extra damage sometimes, and it just helps. All right, moving on to our Paragon board. First one I'm running is Canny. However, I would originally put Combat into this place until you get this board built out, and then I swap the two. The reason you swap them is because you get one more source of damage from this board than you do the starting board. The next board we're going to build into is going to be Exploit. Exploit is the way you make all the enemies vulnerable. So that's where you get a lot of your damage from. This is a key glyph in this build. So if you're going to change some of the glyphs out, I would definitely keep this one. This board is Cunning Stratagem. And off of Cunning Stratagem, I build into Eldritch Bounty. I come down and grab the socket for the glyph, and on this glyph I'm running Infusion. It allows your imbuement skills to do more damage. That's where most of your damage is coming from, is critical strikes from your imbuement skills. So this board is pretty important. I run it all the way out into Eldritch Bounty. Allows my imbue skills to do more damage, gives me more resistance, and I build it all the way out into here. Branching off of Eldritch Bounty, I'm running into Tricks of the Trade, and I run Ranger. Since Barrage is a marksman skill, this allows it to do 92% more damage. Just gives you a little bit extra oomph on your numbers. I build it all the way out into Havoc, and then from Tricks of the Trade, I run into the No Witness board. And on this one, I'm running Combat. Ideally, you're going to run Canny here until you get this board, this area fully maxed out, and then you're going to swap Canny for Combat and put the two where they go. Coming off of the No Witness board, I'm running into Cheap Shot. Cheap Shot just gives you more damage to crowd control enemies. This is the newest edition I added. I just find that it does more damage with the frost. When you start freezing stuff, it allows your cold imbuement to do a lot more damage and allows you to burst down those elites a lot faster.
Not in town. more time.
What? Ready yet.
What tier nightmares are you doing right now?
I'm at 67 right now. About to finish it though.
This shit's nice too with the days because it's lucky hit,
Mm-hmm.
and your shadow step is 107% lucky hit. So you literally just any elite you want to kill, fucking shadow step them. They're dazed. You do extra crit to them, and I do extra damage to them now. It's like so easy to pick out an elite, especially a suppressor. Just shadow in on them. They're dazed. Just kill them.
I'm not ready yet.
Woo, baby. 67, no deaths. Not too shabby, not too shabby.